Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing another Dragonheir Silent Gods video, and today we're going to be tackling the epic artifacts in our artifact tier list series. Of course, we have previously done the rare artifacts, so it's time to move on to the epic ones. Of course, in terms of acquiring these, it is the same as rares, only differences here, you do need to get dupes of epic heroes, so they are a little bit harder to get, but over time you will pick up a fair few of these, even if you are free to play. So once again, we've got a tier list prepared, so we're going to jump over to that, and I'll go through each of the artifacts and give you my opinions of them and whether I think they're worth investing in. I do just want to reiterate, this is of course my opinion. Opinions may vary, so do take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because your opinions may be different to mine, as will other creators. These are my thoughts on each of the artifacts and whether I'd invest in them or not. So first of all, I'm going to start by going into the elemental specific artifacts, as they unfortunately don't pose much of a permanent benefit. They can be useful at the start of the game before you've upgraded skill scrolls, or invested skill scrolls rather, into your heroes to get a more consistent chance to place debuffs. But after that point, they just provide you with a stat stick. So they're giving you some HP and some accuracy, which you can get from other artifacts, which provide you with a lot more benefits. I don't see the point in investing in these, unfortunately, so I'm going to put them all straight away into D tier. So all 6 of these. Where's the last 2? So we've got one there, and there we go. So that's all 6 of those straight into the D tier. So next up, we've got the Ancestor's Candle, and I personally think this is a great artifact if you've got a hero who you need to frequently cycle their battle skill. It can be particularly useful on heroes who place important debuffs such as attack penalty, or possibly heal with their battle skill. I don't see it being quite as valuable as the ultimate version, which increases your ultimate energy, because obviously that allows you to cycle through your skills faster, and obviously as well as that, ultimate skills are generally more impactful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Ancestor's Candle as a B tier, and I'm going to put the ultimate version a little bit higher later on when we get to that one. So now we've got the Antonia's Tiara, and this is an artifact that I see huge value in, and that might be a slight bias due to the fact I use Adolphus almost everywhere. So his shields scale from Enlightenment, which this artifact obviously does provide, as well as increasing his shields by 15%. So in the event that you've got a hero who is able to do these things, this artifact is almost perfect for them. It gives you the stats you need, and it's giving you a 15% bonus to your shields. You can actually get quite high uptime of your shields as well, so they are incredibly valuable. So I'm going to put this in S tier, because I just don't see a better option for these heroes unless you get to obviously the legendary artifacts. But even then, there are some more priority ones which you'd be buying first. So now we've got the Arcana Cube, and this can be somewhat useful for healers who will benefit from the HP and Enlightenment, but in my opinion this would be even stronger if it gave attack percent over HP percent, as then it would become an incredibly good option for derivative damage dealers. So I'm going to put this one in probably B tier for the time being. There we go. And now we've got the Arcane music box, and this is another artifact that I use all the time. So because I use Adolphus a lot, I'm gaining a very high uptime on shields. So for example, in my Vortex team, I've got this artifact on my Rash, and he's gaining a massive amount of 20% damage nearly all the time, because my Adolphus is rotating his shield and it's just always up. So I think this is an incredibly valuable artifact that I'm going to put in probably A tier, because there are stronger artifacts than it, but it does remain a great option. So now we've got the Blood Prince's bracelet, and I don't see a huge amount of value in this. I guess it could get some use in areas like Goblin or maybe Famiander, where you are frequently killing enemies. But outside of this, for general content, I just don't see it being used very often. So I'm going to put this in C tier. So now we've got the Crown of the Unclean, and this is the single most important epic artifact you could ever buy. There are only 2 ways of placing defense penalty in this game. That is this artifact and the legendary version, which is Remains. So this should be instantly the first artifact you buy as soon as you get an epic dupe. Obviously it will significantly enhance your damage on bosses, and also any content really. Obviously it can only place on 1 target, but it's just an all-round great artifact that also provides the accuracy you need to place the debuff. I would recommend using this on on heroes with multi-hit skills, so that when you do your ultimate skill, you do get multiple chances to place that. Obviously, it is only a 75% chance on a single hit if you've fully upgraded it, but it is an incredible artifact and everybody should be aiming to buy this as soon as possible. So next up we've got the Effigy of Divine, and it's another artifact that the value is a little bit limited because you do need to be killing enemies frequently to gain full benefit. Of course, it is very strong for places like Goblin, where you can rotate through your ultimate skills very quickly. Obviously, there are enemies dying all the time there. So it does definitely have some value. I just don't see it being used really anywhere outside of that. So I'm going to give it a B tier. Now we've got the Eyeball of the Giant, and this is a must-have artifact. It grants a huge amount of attack and 20% extra damage on your ultimate abilities, which obviously in most cases are the big hitters for all heroes. So I see this as a must-have and probably the best epic artifact for general damage dealers outside of obviously derivative damage dealers, where they're going to want more, well, for example, the Vile Ink, which we'll cover in a minute. There are better options for them, but in terms of the general use, Eyeball of the Giant is S tier, beyond any doubt. Now we've got the Harpies Nail, which is just like the Eyeball of the Giant. The only difference is this is going to provide you a damage boost on your passive skill. And while this is incredibly good still, it does serve less value for your than the Eyeball of the Giant, because obviously battle skill damage bonus is less important than your ultimate in many cases, but it does remain a great option. So I'm going to put this in A tier. And the same goes for the Manticore Statue, which is just the same. It's just the battle skill instead of the ultimate or passive. So that's also going to go into A tier. So now we've got the Life Spindle, and this is an incredibly strong artifact for healers with the chance to top up an additional ally's health very frequently, especially if you're healing multiple targets with your battle skill. Obviously, each time you're healing, it is the 50% chance to trigger it. This can only apply every 5 seconds, but if you're healing multiple heroes every time you use your battle skill, you do have more chance of triggering that 50%. So I personally think this is incredibly valuable, and I'm going to put it in S tier. So next up, we've got the Mask of the Lark, and I don't personally see this as being the most practical. Obviously, to get full use of it, you do need to maintain 5 buffs on the user, which is incredibly hard to do at the best of times. So without that, you're not getting the 15% damage reduction. So for that reason, I'm rating it quite lowly, but in the event that you are able to maintain a large amount of buffs, and obviously please do let me know in the comments if you're managing to make a good use of this, then it would be great. But without being able to maintain the full 15% damage reduction, I just don't personally see it as one that I would invest in. So I'm going to put it in C tier. So now we've got the Mirror of the Living, which is the next of the healer artifacts, and one I use everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but in a large amount of places. So gaining 30% extra healing whilst healing your team who are already low on health, it's the most important time to get more healing for them, so it's incredibly valuable, as obviously that is going to save their life in a lot of the situations. So as I say, I use this on my healers all the time. It also comes with great stats, so it's giving you defense and HP percent. So I rate this incredibly highly. As I say, I'm going to put this in S tier as well. Now we've got the Phoenix Feather, and this is another artifact that on paper could be quite strong, but I personally don't like the fact that you've got to be under 50% HP for it to trigger. So obviously it's giving you 40% attack if you do drop below that threshold, but I don't like the fact that you're playing into hoping your damage dealers drop below 50%. Obviously can be quite dangerous, especially when the artifact itself is giving you defense percent, which feels a bit counterproductive. Obviously, the more defense you're gaining, the harder it's going to be to drop below 50%. But I'm sure it can be used in certain situations. So I am going to give it a C tier because I just don't personally see the value. So moving on now, we've got one of the first epic tank artifacts. So the Platinum Knight Shield. It is incredibly strong and in my opinion, one of the best options with a huge amount of base stats. Obviously, you're getting HP and defense. And as well as that, 20% reduction to all AoE damage taken. And a lot of the damage you are taking, even as a tank, is going to be AoE related. Whether they're the only ones in range and the only ones receiving it, it doesn't mean it's not AoE. So especially, well, just in general, I think this is a great all-round artifact for a tank. So I'm going to put this in S tier. And now we've got the Scarab Amulet, which is, once again, an incredibly strong artifact for tanks. So this gives a huge amount of stats. Again, it's kind of the opposite of the Platinum Knight Shield, so you're getting HP and then defense percent instead. But it also gives you the security of a massive shield when you do drop low on health, which can help give you that little bit of time to recover before you obviously die. So you get the extra chance to get a heal in, or to use a skill to reduce the damage you're taking. So once again, I'm going to put this straight into S tier because there are very few options for tanks, and this is an incredibly strong one. Now we've got the Silver Star Horseshoe, and this is incredibly strong for dauntless damage dealers because the amount of attack speed you're gaining. So obviously it does give you an incredibly high uptime due to how frequently you're using your basic attacks. So you'll gain nearly a permanent 50% attack speed, which is amazing, whilst also gaining attack and crit damage, which just obviously enhances your damage in your build. So I'm going to put this one in S tier because for anybody using Dauntless heroes, this is a great option. Now we've got the Spiritual Incense Burner, and we did touch on this a little bit earlier. Obviously we had the Ancestor's Candle, which does a similar thing, just makes you use your battle skill faster. This is your ultimate here. So obviously boosting your ultimate energy by every time you're unleashing your ultimate skill is just going to allow you to use your ultimate skill faster. So I personally find this a great option for debuffers to reduce their ultimate cooldown. I use it quite a lot on heroes that I don't want to invest skill scrolls into to make sure that I can get their cooldowns in line with the boss's rotation. So this artifact for me is a must-have, but I am only going to give it an A tier because obviously in a lot of situations, if you're upgrading your skills, you won't actually need that benefit, but it does remain an all-round great artifact. So now we've got the Violink, and this I mentioned obviously being incredibly strong for derivative damage dealers. So this prevents you from being able to trigger any critical hits, but it does let you do 35% more derivative damage, whilst also giving you a huge amount of attack. This artifact is actually the best option for Flora if you don't have her exclusive artifact, especially in Vortex, as the legendary alternative that scales from distance to the target. Obviously in Vortex you are very limited for how much space you've got, so you can't get full value of that artifact here. So the Violink artifact is a must-have if you're building a team that revolves around derivative damage. So that's why it's going straight into S tier. So next up, we've got the last one we've got is the Wine of Dragonblood. I think this is an incredibly good artifact once again for Dauntless damage dealers, with a huge boost to attack speed, whilst also increasing your critical rate. So it does allow you to only build with 80% with a very high uptime on the critical rate buff. So it will allow you to focus on other stats on your build and amplify your damage. Obviously, it's giving you a large amount of attack speed as well from the passive stats on it. So I'm going to put this one into A tier. And actually, I am going to change the Horseshoe to A tier as well, just because with it only being Dauntless damage dealers that gain a huge amount of benefit from it, it's a little bit more niche. So I'll leave that like that. I'm quite happy with this list personally. Obviously, as I say, this is just my opinion, so if anybody has a different opinion, please do let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to hear other opinions. But if you are enjoying the content I'm putting out, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.